All right, so we're going to dive in. It is June 8th. We are here for month 4 of this 6-month education series hosted and sponsored by Kemosabi at this beautiful Emmett Wellness Center, 2121 Fourth Line in Ashweekend. And I am excited to dive into this one. This is probably one of the most important education sessions we're going to have this time around. But before we dive into that, as always, our land acknowledgement, because at EducaNation, we are dedicated allies to the First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people, and we recognize the vast sovereign and surrendered and treaty territories from the east to the west coast. And we acknowledge the First Peoples of Turtle Island to be the original and rightful landowners, land caretakers, and land healers to what we know to be Canada. And through our ever-growing network of partners and supporters, we at EducaNation sincerely aim to continually work and learn how to be diverse and responsive in supporting the various wellness needs of Indigenous communities. And most of you know who I am by now, so we'll just sum it up real quick. I'm a stage 4 cancer survivor after being diagnosed with stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer in November 2019 and offered no options. I went searching for an alternative, and cannabis was my savior. And I became very passionate about learning, became executive director of EducaNation, and now work with other patients who wish to learn how they can utilize this medicine. And to help them do that, I wrote a book, High Hopes for Healing, Stigma-Free Education on Thriving Through Cancer with Cannabis. That was published just a couple of months ago, which is a great guide for anybody who's just been diagnosed with cancer. Also contributed to a collaborative book project in 2023, High Aspirations. And that's pretty much me. But just be informed that the information that I'm providing here today shouldn't supersede that of your doctor or healthcare provider. I'm not a doctor or a nurse. I don't have any clinical designations of any kind. I am just a patient who has spent the last 6 years learning about this plant, and I'm sharing what I have learned with you.
Business card.
So this is a big one today, really big one, because the system's been around for a really long time. Not everybody knows about it. After the session, you might be more informed than some of the medical professionals that you go to see, because not all of them are aware of this very important system. The system that is known as the endocannabinoid system, and that has been around for a long time. It has been evolving in the reptilian brain of human beings for 500, 600 million years. And it actually works in our body, shaped by our own personal histories, experiences, and physiologies. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We do know that the system is that old because we have some early evidence in primitive vertebrates like early fish and sea squirts. And the reason why researchers believe that the endocannabinoid system developed is, and this is just a theory, but back in the day, we didn't really have hospitals or emergency responses, so the body needed a rapid response adaptation system because we were floating through some pretty harsh conditions way back when, some highly unpredictable environments that created temperature swings, limited food supply. There were predators, infections, injuries, and a lot of challenges for reproduction, which constantly were threatening our survival. So to navigate these pressures, living organisms developed this internal communication network that could monitor conditions, coordinate responses, and help maintain balance despite a changing environment.
Business card.
So this network is known as the endocannabinoid system, and this system provides a powerful survival advantage. Rather than controlling one single function, it acts as a regulatory system that helps the body adapt to both internal and external stressors. So the endocannabinoid system is not running any one system. Instead, it is helping to coordinate communication between all of your bodily systems, supporting balance, adaptation, and resilience.
Business card.
And because this endocannabinoid system is found all throughout your brain and body, it's influencing every major organ system. It is often described as a master regulator, and it helps to fine-tune function across your nervous, immune, digestive, hormonal, reproductive, musculoskeletal, respiratory, cardiovascular, skin, urinary tract, and lymphatic system. So the health of all of these systems depends on the health of your endocannabinoid system. So you think of your body as a symphony, Your endocannabinoid system is a conductor that's moving every instrument into two. And all vertebrates have an endocannabinoid system. So humans, dogs, cats, birds, fish, we all have an endocannabinoid system. And each one of our systems is as unique as our DNA. And as I mentioned earlier, is shaped by our own personal history.
business card,
So your endocannabinoid system will function differently than mine based on genetic makeup, like who your parents are, where you came from, well, including intergenerational and present day trauma responses. It shifts based on our diet, how we manage our stress levels, how much sleep we get, and the impact of the environmental toxins, which are coming at us from every angle, every minute of every day. And then, of course, your endocannabinoid system will adjust based on exposure to cannabis as well. But that does show that this important system has been functioning for a long time before cannabis was around. So it is active whether we are interacting with cannabis or not.
business card, business card, business card, business card, business card, business card, business
All
card,
right. So
business card,
as I mentioned, your body is constantly adjusting to thousands of processes moment by moment, trying to keep your body operating within a healthy functional range, not too much, not too little. Just like the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, your endocannabinoid system wants to keep everything just right. If you get too hot, your body will sweat to cool you down. If your blood sugar drops, your hormone signals your body to release stored energy. And if you encounter a threat, your heart rate and alertness increase to help you respond. And this is the primary role of supporting homeostasis. And homeostasis is your body's ability to maintain this internal balance no matter what is changing in your external environment, whether it's physical stress, emotional stress, injury, infection, temperature changes. You didn't sleep last night, you didn't get to eat, and you're lacking energy. Your endocannabinoid system is always helping your body adapt to this and respond appropriately. So homeostasis is not necessarily about keeping everything the same, but it's about keeping everything in balance. Your blood sugar, body temperature, inflammation, mood, sleep, all of the things, countless processes remain within optimal range, and that helps us to function better. So your endocannabinoid system is a biological balancing system. It's continually monitoring what's happening inside and outside of your body and making subtle adjustments to keep you in harmony. So if the endocannabinoid system is doing its job by constantly asking the body, are we safe? Do we need rest? Do we need food? Do we need to heal? And do we need to increase or decrease inflammation? And this is all to keep us aligned in a state of homeostasis. And whether or not we use cannabis, our endocannabinoid system is working every moment to keep this balance. And of course, sometimes, the demands of life overwhelm our natural regulatory systems, leading to what some researchers have dubbed endocannabinoid deficiency. And this just means that sometimes our systems have a difficult time adapting when there's too much overwhelm, too many external stressors. And then that is when the plant becomes so fascinating, because the phytocannabinoids that are found in the plant can interact with our endocannabinoid system and offer us that additional support to help us adapt, survive, and thrive. And it does so through the mechanisms of action listed below that we're going to look at in more detail in the next slide. So it helps us to protect, relax, eat, forget, and sleep.
business card, business card, business card, business card, business card, business card, business card.
Okay, so one of the world's most influential researchers, Italian scientist, Dr. Vincenzo Di Marzo, he had highlighted these mechanisms of action of the cannabis plant and concluded that cannabis helps us protect, eat, relax, forget, and sleep. And for patients, protection matters because healing can't really happen in a constant state of chaos. So by reducing the burdens of inflammation and oxidative stress and promoting, a healthy immune system, neuroprotection and cellular communication, then cannabis can help to secure our cells from further damage. When it comes to eating, of course, appetite is survival for patients. When patients lose their desire to eat or their ability to eat, then we see that weight loss accelerates. We see muscle wasting, nutrient deficiencies worsen, and this can lead to reduced energy and a reduction in a person's ability to heal. For people with cancer, chronic illness, gastrointestinal disorders, or treatment-related nausea issues, this can be especially significant because their systems are already under so much stress. And we know that THC can help stimulate appetite, even enhance how much you enjoy food, and also reduce the nausea that is associated with eating.
Business card.
And of course, in today's world, it does make it very hard for us to relax. We all have a lot of demands and to-do lists, and because of this, many people suffer from chronic stress and pain, and this often keeps the body locked in a fight or flight or survival mode, and the stressful hormones remain elevated over time and over the long term. Of course, this leads to patients experiencing increased inflammation and poor sleep, digestive issues, anxiety and depression, immune suppression, and emotional exhaustion as well. And the endocannabinoid system can help regulate this nervous system response and can actually improve our recovery time as well, because the body heals most effectively when it feels safe enough to shift from that survival mode to a more restorative mode. And forget, this is one of the most misunderstood functions of the brain. Forgetting isn't necessarily a flaw. It can be a feature. Forgetting is healthy. Forgetting is forgiveness. Forgetting is how we heal and adapt and move forward with our lives. And the endocannabinoid system can actually help us regulate our emotional memory banks and soften our fear responses and reduce the trauma signaling, and also aid in memory extinction, which is forgetting. It's the process of reducing the emotional charges that are associated with past traumas. And of course, we've seen huge benefit in this for people who suffer from PTSD, veterans, and with intergenerational trauma. This has been a huge benefit. So in many ways, it's the endocannabinoid system is just helping us let go of what's no longer serving us and creating space for resilience. And then patients living with trauma, chronic illness, pain, grief, or a frightening diagnosis, they often become trapped in that hypervigilant fight or flight space. And cannabinoid signaling can help reduce the intensity of these emotions and make it easier to process. And then sleep, of course. During sleep, we know that the body repairs tissue. It regulates hormones, it consolidates memories, and clears metabolic waste from the brain, as well as slowly restoring our immune balances. And I have read that a lot of profound healing happens in our sleep. I've read that cancers are most often healed during sleep. But of course, the majority of people today, they suffer from poor or improper sleep, which can, of course, exacerbate pain and trigger mood fluctuations, promote inflammation, impair cognition, tweak your blood sugar, and of course, deplete your immune system. So sleep is one of the main reasons that many people end up turning to cannabis, because conventional sleep approaches often leave people, feeling overly sedated rather than rested. But the endocannabinoid system actually helps to regulate our circadian rhythms, and that supports nervous system balance, which is, of course, tied to restorative sleep. So what Dr. Vincenzo DiMarzo's framework really does show us is that cannabis does not simply target symptoms, but it's interfacing with our ancient survival pathways that are tied to safety, nourishment, restoration, resilience, and adaptation. And when patients can start to regain control over some of these processes, then their quality of life often improves dramatically, especially when navigating serious illnesses. And that's why, a lot of patients who utilize cannabis describe it as something that is not masking symptoms, but something that's helping them reconnect to their ability to function, to cope, to rest, and to heal. And that is actually a lot about what my book is about. because that's what happened to me. You know, it was a snowball effect of healing where one thing healed, it made way for continued healing throughout my body. So, very. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of it now. You know, for a very complex and comprehensive system, it really is quite simple. Our endocannabinoid system is made up simply of three parts. We have our endocannabinoids that interact with cannabinoid receptors that are created and degraded by metabolic enzymes. So we're going to get into each one of these in more detail in the following slides, but this is just an overview of the endocannabinoid system. There's two main endocannabinoids that we know of. These are molecules we make in our body that are very similar to those that are found in the cannabis plant. The two that we know of are called anandamide and 2-AG, and they appear and act remarkably similar to molecules in the cannabis plant like THC and CBD. Endo translates to within, so endocannabinoids are the cannabinoids we make within our body, and phyto means plant. Hence the terms endocannabinoid and phytocannabinoid, where the phytocannabinoids are those that come from the plants. And then our endocannabinoids are synthesized and degraded on demand by specific enzymes that we'll look at. And the endocannabinoids and cannabinoids interact with our cannabinoid receptors, sort of like a lock and key system where the receptor functions as the lock, and then the cannabinoids are the keys that unlock the mechanism of action and effects. Some interactions can turn up an effect and some interactions can turn them down. So the endocannabinoid system is not necessarily like an on-off switch, but it's more like a dimmer switch. All right. So yeah, before we get into the parts of the endocannabinoid system in a little more detail, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the discovery of the endocannabinoid system. It didn't happen all at once. It is quite recent. It's been unfolding over the last 50 plus years or so. And we got here just following a trail of clues that were hidden within the cannabis plant. So it started around the 1940s when CBD was discovered. Chemist Roger Adams successfully separated CBD or cannabidiol from cannabis for the first time. And at the time, nobody knew what CBD did or why it mattered. It was simply one of the many compounds found in the plant. And then more than 20 years later, Dr. Raphael Mechoulam, the godfather of cannabis science, determined CBD's exact molecular structure, and that helped launch the modern era of cannabinoid science. The following year, after Dr. Raphael Mechoulam structured CBD in 1963, we had 1964, where Mechoulam again and his colleague Yehal Gayoni identified and mapped the structure of THC. And this was a very pivotal moment because scientists now had a molecule that clearly produced effects in the body, but they had no idea how it worked. So the question became, what is THC interacting with? And that question is what led to one of the most important biological discoveries of the 20th century. So for years, researchers searched for this answer, and then scientists Alin Howlett and William Devane discovered the CB1 receptor. And the discovery of the CB1 receptor revealed that cannabis wasn't acting randomly in the body. Instead, it was interacting with a sophisticated biological system that had been there all along. And then this discovery created an even bigger mystery, because if the body had receptors for cannabinoids, why would they exist unless the body was making its own cannabinoid-like compounds? And that's when Mechoulam's team went looking for the answer and discovered anandamide, our first endocannabinoid. So for the first time then, scientists realized that humans naturally produce compounds remarkably similar to those found in the cannabis plant. Then in 1993, a second receptor appears. Just 1 year later, researchers identify the CB2 receptor. CB1 they found primarily throughout the nervous system, brain and nervous system, and CB2 is found primarily in the immune system and the associated tissues and organs that are predominantly involved in immune function and inflammation. And it revealed that, the endocannabinoid system was far more than a brain-based system, which they thought at the time. Then in 1995, we completed the picture when researchers discovered our second endocannabinoid, 2-AG or 2-arachidonyl glycerol. Unlike anandamide, which is produced in smaller amounts and on demand, 2-AG is actually our most abundant and constant endocannabinoid throughout our body, and it plays a major role in cannabinoid signaling. It's always ongoing. And so with the discovery of the CB1, CB2 receptors, anandamide, and 2-AG, this laid the foundation of the endocannabinoid system. And this, has helped us to shift our understanding of human health. So in many ways, too, we know it wasn't cannabis that created the story of the endocannabinoid system. It was just cannabis that helped us discover it. Okay, so we're going to get into the components in a little bit more detail, starting with our endocannabinoids. So we have anandamide or N-arachidonyl ethanolamide. There's one for you, Monica. Oh, geez. Got its name from the Sanskrit word ananda, meaning bliss or joy. And this is the endocannabinoid that behaves very similar to THC, and it looks very similar in structure to THC as well. But it's just made on demand. And anandamide is a short-lived feel-good messenger with a pulse rather than a constant signal. It acts locally rather than system-wide, and it's produced from lipids or fats and the enzymes when the body senses a need. So our bodies naturally produce anandamide every day, and there are many simple ways without cannabis that you can actually support its production. Physical activity would be one of the most well-studied examples because we know that exercise can increase anandamide levels and contribute to an improved mood, reduce stress, and the feelings like the one often associated with the runner's high. If you've heard of the runner's high, there was a time researchers believed that feeling came from a secretion of endorphins in the brain, but now we understand that it's actually our brain releasing anandamide. And that's what's playing a significant role in that experience. Anandamide levels are also influenced by just regular activities that promote enjoyment, relaxation, and connection, like spending time in nature, having a meaningful conversation, laughing, holding a baby, creative pursuits, meditation, music, quality sleep. All of these positive interactions have all been associated with supporting the body's natural balance and helping us to produce our own anandamide. And anandamide is created and released quickly and is broken down just as quickly as well. So because of this, its effects are fast, precise, and temporary. And then during its short window of activity, anandamide is interacting with CB1 and CB2 receptors, helping to make the body helping the body make rapid, targeted, moment-to-moment adjustments without lingering effects. And then it's just a quick reset signal to restore balance. Anandamide is our body's original, feel-good signal. And then we have 2-AG. So if anandamide is the quick whisper of bliss and tone setting, then 2-AG is your heavy-duty, hot, high-volume ghetto blaster. It's the body's first responder that jumps into action when it senses attack. It strongly influences CB1, CB2 receptors. It influences immune function, brain communication, pain perception, neuroprotection, appetite and energy balance, brain growth and development. This means that the body is constantly listening, adjusting, and recalibrating multiple systems at once, not in a single pathway, but as an interconnected network. So just to recap, anandamide is your subtle tone, a crisp molecule, emotionally soothing, and then 2-AG is your bulk regulation, your immunity, and your neural recalibration. All right, so now we're going to look at some of the receptors that are associated with the endocannabinoid system. So cannabinoid receptors are known as G protein coupled receptors, and their jobs are to receive and transmit messages between cells. So your CB1 receptor is found predominantly in your brain, and it extends through your central nervous system, spinal cord, nerves, digestive tract, reproductive organs, and connective tissues, and it acts like a cellular communication antenna. When cannabinoids bind to CB1, it helps to regulate our mood, our memory, our appetite, our pain, our movement, sleep, stress response, and temperature. And it works as a modulator or like a dimmer switch rather than a light switch, helping to regulate balance after too much excitation, inflammation, stress, or neurotransmitter release. And then, so the CB1 receptor is the receptor that speaks mainly to the brain of perception, and the CB2 receptor is the one that speaks mainly to immunity, inflammation, and tissue repair. So you'll find more CB2 receptors in your spleen, tonsils, thymus, and bone marrow, all of these associated with the immune system. And it's CB2 is quieter than CB1, but it's still extremely important for how the body manages disease, injury, and chronic stress load. CB2 is like a molecular thermostat or a volume knob for the immune system that can calm inflammation when you're feeling hurt or you're feeling sick. It can protect your brain even during a stroke or through degenerative brain diseases. It can stop body pain while other receptors handle pain inside your brain. The CB2 receptor actually stops pain at the source, and it stops the chemicals that irritate your nerves so you don't notice it as much. And it helps to keep your bones strong as well. And CB1 and CB2 are actually not the only receptors that are influencing this system. Scientists have discovered additional components that interact with the endocannabinoid system, other receptors that impact our physiology, and they include other G protein coupled receptors like GPR55. We also have PPARs, peroxisome proliferator activated receptors, and TRP ion channels or TRPV transient receptor potential vanilloid receptors. A lot of big words, but these are just helping to manage our bone health, helping to reduce pain, helping with our metabolism, our genes, and inflammation. And these are components that make up larger and what is known on a more larger and combined scale as the endocannabinoid dome. And this is a picture that we are still pulling into focus, still learning, but there's much more to our systems than just 3 parts that we know of. There's a lot more going on, but we still have a lot to learn. And then we have the enzymes. We're not going to spend a lot of time here, but these are a few critical components that help to create and degrade our endocannabinoids on demand. So you have the enzyme NAT, it's NAT PLD. It starts off as NAT, but then it breaks down to manufacture anandamide, which influences CB1, CB2. And then once its job is done, then Fa is breaking down the anandamide that the NAT is creating. DAGL or diacylglycerol lipase is an enzyme that acts like a cellular factory worker, and it helps to build 2-AG to help regulate movement, mood, and inflammation. Fa or fatty acid amide hydrolase is a critical cleanup enzyme that breaks down anandamide, and after the message is delivered, it helps to control how long its calming and pain relieving signals last in the brain. And then you have MAGL or monoglycerol cycloglycerol lipase is a key cleanup enzyme that breaks down 2-AG after the job is done to help prevent overstimulation of the nervous system. And it also helps to control inflammatory responses as well. So the enzymes of the endocannabinoid system are just constantly building and breaking down endocannabinoids to ensure that the signals are delivered exactly when they are needed and only for as long as they are needed, helping to maintain that homeostasis. And there are lots of natural means to support the health of your endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system has been evolving for a very long time, and it was clear we didn't need this plant, but life has evolved, things have changed. And I feel like this plant was kind of put here to support, us in our more current state of life. So a lot of natural ways that you can support your endocannabinoid system health. Diet is huge. Omega-3s are the essential building blocks of proteins. They are also the building blocks of your natural cannabinoids that help to keep your receptors working smoothly. Eating those dark leafy greens, which are packed with magnesium and are actually, they actually fuel enzymes that are responsible for creating cannabinoids. And cannabis is also a green that you can add to that list. And of course, dark chocolate, it contains compounds that block Fa, the enzyme that breaks down anandamide. So it allows anandamide to linger just a little bit longer in your body. And dark chocolate actually contains its own anandamide. So chocolate, it's making you feel good for a reason. It is good for you as long as it is good chocolate. The darker, the better. And of course, organic if you can. Organic foods really are lacking a lot of the synthetic pesticides and microplastics, which these days can help disrupt the balance of our endocannabinoid system and actually damage and desensitize our cannabinoid receptors. So we don't want that. Exercise, we mentioned before, very, very important. It triggers a production of anandamide and it wakes up cannabinoid receptor production. So walking, yoga, dance, and weightlifting are all excellent options. Avoiding plastic because plastics, they contain endocrine disrupting chemicals, can throw off the balance of our endocannabinoid systems, throw off the production of our endocannabinoids. So if you can switch to glass, stainless, there's a lot of better options out there. Eliminating alcohol, so important for all our health, but great for the health of your endocannabinoid system as well. Alcohol at the beginning can kind of enhance endocannabinoid signaling, and it can contribute to feelings of relaxation and reward. But through chronic use, the brain adapts to this, and then it reduces CB1 receptor activity, and this actually increases anxiety, stress sensitivity, and cravings often experienced during withdrawal. So best to just avoid it altogether. And then looking at gut health, like we know that our guts are our second brain, maybe our first brain. They're deeply tied together, deeply connected. So our endocannabinoid system is also like this communication bridge between our brain and our gut tissue and our microbiome, and it's regulating our motility. It's fortifying our gut barrier and calming inflammation. And then sleep, of course, it's so very important. Our endocannabinoid system is regulating our circadian rhythms and stabilizing our sleep patterns. We've always heard get 8 hours sleep. Apparently, the new science says 7. 7 is the sweet spot. So as long as you're getting 7 hours of sleep, you're doing all right. Okay, only 1 or 2 left here. Of course, cannabis, have a very low risk profile than many commonly used substances, but as safe as it can be when it's used improperly. When you lack intention or respect, then it can have potential adverse effects. And understanding these risks can help support informed and responsible use. So looking at cannabis use disorder, while most people who utilize cannabis do not develop dependence, a small percentage can. It's less than 9% at this point. And cannabis use disorder happens when cannabis use shifts from being a choice to being something that feels difficult to control, despite creating challenges in a person's life. And, this can include experiencing cravings, struggling to cut back, continuing to use despite it having negative impacts on your health or relationships or work or school or personal goals. So they say that the risk for cannabis use disorder tends to be higher among people who start using cannabis at a very young age and consume quite frequently over long periods of time. And also, they say the risk is greater when you're using cannabis as your primary coping tool for stress, anxiety, or emotional challenges. Important to understand that dependence exists on a spectrum, because just as people can become, they can have an unhealthy relationship with food, with gambling, with social media, with alcohol. Some individuals might develop an unhealthy relationship with cannabis. we do find that these tend to be the people who already tend to have addictive tendency. But knowing that this is, out there and recognizing early signs and symptoms can, help shift relationship with the plant and reduce problematic use while maximizing potential benefit. And then cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, might have heard quite a bit about this in the news lately. There's a lot of new research coming out about it. And it's characterized by recurring episodes of severe nausea, vomiting, and abdominal discomfort, usually in long-term frequent cannabis users. We don't know exactly why cannabis hyperemesis syndrome occurs, but the current evidence suggests that is associated with prolonged heavy use of high THC products, and sometimes products that are of low quality, filled with contaminants and residual solvents and things like that. So, if you're purchasing a lower quality product, this might be of a greater risk for you. So really important to know, where your medicine is coming from. One of the distinctive features of cannabis hyperemesis syndrome is that people report temporary relief from symptoms through hot baths or showers. And that was a clue that actually helped researchers investigate conditions connected to the endocannabinoid system and its ability to regulate temperature. But while symptoms can be managed during acute episodes of cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, the most consistently effective intervention recognized today is to just quit cannabis for good. And that will lead to a symptom resolution over time. And that just means cutting out cannabis forever. So cannabis hyperemesis syndrome really only affects a small subset of people. But again, understanding that it is out there can promote responsible and informed use. I would also like to suggest that we avoid always going to high potency THC products, and by diversifying our cannabinoid profiles, by adding in other cannabinoids like CBD and CBG, which can really improve our odds at being affected by this condition, because it's just, we are getting way too much THC that is not made in a good way. So many people who use cannabis will never experience cannabis use disorder or cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, but it's good that we know. And so on that note, so I just want to review real quick. Our endocannabinoid system is our master regulator. It's our largest cell signaling network in the body, controlling all of the other systems of our body to maintain homeostasis. That's what it does. And it does so by helping our bodies protect, eat, relax, forget, sleep. And it's made up simply of endocannabinoids, cannabinoid receptors, and enzymes. We've only known about it since 1988. That's why most of our doctors don't know about it, because it hasn't quite made its way into the medical textbooks yet, but we're working on it. And of course, you can support it not only with cannabis, but through any of the means that you would utilize to maintain good health. It's as simple as that. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your attention. Hope to see you next month on July 13th. We're talking about practical applications and strategies for utilizing cannabis. It's going to be a good one too. Hope to see you there.